I don't want to waste my single years searching for somebody. That is not how I wanted to live my single life. I want to live my single life. I want to be comfortable in being single. I don't want my single days just to be like on dating apps and like searching for somebody. No, that's not how you live single. You live a single life on your own, doing the things that you want to do without somebody disrespecting you. Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Coming Up for Air with myself, Lou. Welcome to my Friday. I am not going to sit here and tell you how busy I am. Everybody knows how busy I am. I'm recording on a Friday. Usually means I've had a busy week. Obviously, it was the bank holiday weekend in the UK last weekend. I had the most delicious weekend, I would say. It was just delightful. I spent it with my friends and my family. I didn't actually, in fact, I think I was in bed every night for 10 o'clock, which is really unlike me. And I was sitting having a conversation with my best friend, Isabel, last night, and I was saying, sometimes because my life is so full on and I say yes to everything, and it's like, hey Lou, do you want to go here? Hey Lou, do you want to go here? Do you want to get the train here? Do you want to, let's go out here, fly over here, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like here, there and everywhere at the weekends. Sometimes it's so nice to actually be like, do you know what? This is what I'm going to do with my weekend. And I purposely put aside bank holiday to do stuff that I wanted to do. So I wanted to spend the weekend getting my steps in. I wanted to spend the weekend with my family, and I actually wanted to climb Snowdon. Now, if you know that I climbed Snowdon, when I talk about my past life, my previous life, I talk about spending time in Newquay, but I also spent a lot of time in North Wales. It was just where my ex grew up, spent all of his childhood. And it's funny because when I was talking to my friend who I climbed Snowdon with, I was saying it was so weird because when I met my ex, he just came out of the blue. He just kind of like was a local lad, but I never saw him, and it was because his parents used to take him to North Wales every weekend. So whilst we were out drinking vodka and boost in the park, he was in North Wales, which I don't know who had the better childhood. But when I met him, he started taking me to North Wales to his parents' place, and we spent pretty much every single weekend, every single anniversary. We celebrated there. We celebrated on a little beach down by where his parents' caravan was, and we used to call it our beach. And it was just a very sentimental place to be. And I reminisced hard at the weekend because I remember climbing Snowdon for the first time. I was so unfit. I think it took me 6 hours to like get up and back down. I think it probably was longer. I don't have any record of it like on Strava or anything, but it was before I knew about my diagnosis with my hip dysplasia. My hips were seizing up. They were so painful. I literally like shuffled to the top. And I did it with my ex. And I remember thinking, oh my God, like that was so difficult. I literally got up in, I think, just under 2 hours on bank holiday weekend. And I would have got up quicker if there wouldn't have been that many people. It was like walk, stop, like towards the top where it gets really difficult and quite sketchy. And it was like so hot as well. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see that I have some very questionable tan lines, which I'm trying to tan out now. But I've really underestimated the weather. It was like 26 degrees or something. I had no idea. When we left where I lived, it's 3 hours away from where I live. When we left, it was grey pretty much in the Midlands. It was not very great weather. When we hit like Snowdonia and like around those places, it was so sunny. I was like, I've not bought a sunblock. And I learned the hard way because my sunburn has been horrendous and I have the worst tan lines, which is not ideal because I work very hard not to have tan lines. Yeah, I'm trying to tan out the horrendous tan lines that I have. Anyway, so I was reminiscing and I was saying it's funny because I always say that I would never go back to Newquay, and I think it's because my ex has spent a lot of time down there with his new girlfriend, and no doubt he'll probably spend a lot of time in North Wales with his new girlfriend, but I feel like I've only ever done Snowdon with him once. I've climbed Snowdon every year since 2022. I did the Three Peaks Challenge. I took my sister up there. I took my best friend up there. And then obviously I went on bank holiday weekend. And everybody always says, like, go back to the places that you used to cry in and smile and laugh. And that's exactly what I've done. I didn't feel the need to go to any of the places that were around the area that would remind me of my ex, but I am confident around that area and I do know the area quite well. And I was saying to my parents it would be nice to be able to go back and explore the area a little bit more. I've done like the full waterfall hikes. I've gone to, I think it's called Rainder waterfalls. I can't remember. I've been there and done that. Like, I'm making my own memories in a place where I feel semi-confident to go by myself. But yeah, it was so much fun. Like I said, we summited in literally just under 2 hours, got to the top, and I'm not joking, in the top, like to put your hand on the Snowdon circle. It was about 2 hours wait. It was ridiculous. There were so many people up there. I'd done it before. The person I went with had done it before. So we were like, look, let's just grab a drink and start going back down again. And then I went over to the other side with the Watkin path where I discovered that by myself. I think it was in 2022. I think it was the winter in 2022. I discovered that by myself. So I was like, hey, do you want to go see the waterfalls on Snowdon, which not a lot of people really know about? So there I was in the car driving over, and I thought, who am I? Like, 3 years ago, I wouldn't have even been able to drive there on my own or trust myself to drive there on my own. I wasn't a very confident driver. I was a self-proclaimed passenger princess. I didn't even know where half the roads were that we travelled on. I didn't know where roads took me. I was just kind of like, well, this road goes to where I need to go shopping. This road goes here. I didn't really know a lot of the roads, but immediately when I got on the road and I got on the roads that I recognised when I was in Wales, I was like, oh my God, like I recognise these roads now. Not because I used to drive them all the time with my ex, because like I said, I was so oblivious to what was going on. Like, I bought the vibes, I bought the snacks, I bought the Beyonce playlist, the performances, Ariana Grande, Cardi B. Like, I was the entertainment in the car and he did the driving. So it wasn't even that. I've developed a knowledge of these roads from being on my own and taking myself there and having to concentrate. And I shared a video on my Instagram this morning about being the girl that was scared to be alone. And one of those videos, which I'm going to share this afternoon, was me saying, oh my God, like this is probably the furthest I've ever driven on my own in the car, and going through the country lanes and the mountains and just building the confidence up like that. And the climb on Sunday was very, very reflective. And it was very reflective of how far I'd come. And I didn't intend to go for those reasons. At the moment, my life feels very calm. And I've been going through quite a tough year with myself, with like making ends meet. Like, financially, I felt quite stressed about money and where it's coming from and stuff. And finally, I feel like I'm in a position now to breathe. And I definitely went up Snowdon with a very grateful heart that I've been able to grow to the point of where I am now and learn and listen. And I would never sit here and say, finally, I'm over my breakup. There are a lot of things that still affected me this year that stemmed from my breakup. And that's when I get irritated with people who say, like, oh, like, she's still not over it. I am over the breakup. But, you know, when countries suffer with an earthquake and then they have the aftershocks, I feel like I've been dealing with the aftershocks of my breakup for about 18 months in all kind of areas of my life. And on Sunday, I got to the top of Snowdon, and it might sound cliche, it might sound a little bit sad, but I literally stood on top of Snowdon and I was like, oh my God, like, my life actually now is calm. I have so much direction and so much ambition and a fire in my belly. And I've not felt like that for a very long time. And it was so nice to be there in the moment. It's the clearest I have ever seen Snowdon, ever. The top was unbelievable. If you go on my Instagram, you'll be able to see the photos, but it was so clear. Blue skies, sun was shining down. It was just like the most Like nicest Sunday, nicest way to spend my bank holiday ever. And yeah, like I said, I was just stood there and I thought, I would love to be able to like bottle up this feeling and sell it to people that are going through a breakup now and that are in the early days of their breakup and are struggling, because I want to be able to say like in 3 years time you get to be able to have your life back and you get to find, your direction, you get to find your confidence back. And that doesn't happen in 6 months, but within those 6 months you are doing everything to build up to this moment. And like I said, I took myself off 6 months after my breakup on my first solo hike in North Wales on my own, and coming back there 3 years later and being able to talk about the area and not have to say, me and my ex went there. I've taken myself off and I've found new places. And yes, there is a place that I have friends that go to Abersock, and I'll probably go back to Abersock. It was a place that we didn't spend loads of time there, but we spent enough time there. A couple occasionally would go over to Abersock, but I have friends that have places in Abersock, so I probably will spend a little bit of time there. But the places that I was talking about, like for example, just being able to say like, do you want to go over to the waterfalls? I'll be able to take you. Like I know where there's parking. I know how to get there. It's 45 minutes up, 45 minutes down. Do you want to go there? And I was like, do you know what? That's quite impressive for me, because I was so sheltered and I was kind of just like led by my ex. Like if my ex wanted to do something, we did it. If he wanted to go to a place, we went there. And I'm not saying that there was anything bad with that, but it just meant that I didn't really have any independence. And now I have so much independence. And I was able to, obviously, like I said, climb Snowdon and reflect, but reflect on so much, like my fitness as well. Just being able to smash out Snowdon in under 2 hours at the top in 27-degree heat and enjoy it. I mean, it sounds quite psychotic. Like people would be like, what? But honestly, if you haven't climbed Snowdon in your life and you think, oh, that would be really fun to do, I do fully recommend it. 1000%. I think everybody, if you get the opportunity to climb a mountain in England, then do it. We are now tempted to fly to Ben Nevis and do Ben Nevis. I've done Ben Nevis, obviously, in the Three Peaks. However, when I did it, the visibility was awful. I could have been stood at the top of any mountain. There was no proof. Well, there was, because obviously I got like the proof of the top and the plaque and stuff, but there was no proof that I was at the top of Ben Nevis. I could have literally been anywhere. The weather was horrendous. I think I've spoken about it in an earlier episode of me doing the Three Peaks challenge. It was wild. And I was doing it whilst training for a marathon. I was manic, in a nutshell, in 2022, a little bit. I was like going like up and down in my breakup. I didn't really have any chill. I just kept powering through, and then I did the Three Peaks challenge. So yeah, I've got the bug again, and if you've been here for a while, you know that I am a winter hiker. I love hiking in the winter. I think weekends can be so miserable. I have hiked before where there's been black ice. Yeah, I think it's like makes me again sound psychotic. Yeah, go hiking with black ice. I didn't know there was going to be black ice there, but I really enjoy hiking in the winter. I've hiked before where there's just been snow on the ground and places have looked amazing. I'm going to get a little bit more braver this year and book some overnight stays. I would love to go to the Lake District and like Yorkshire area, like around Yorkshire. I've got a few places that I want to go there, but again, like I've been saying, last Christmas I was not in the financial position to be able to fork out for overnight stays. I have worked so hard this year to make my finances meet, and I woke up this morning and there was lots of stuff that was going on this morning that I've like spent the morning crying, a lot of stuff that I'm going to probably talk about in the future, but like happy tears. And now I feel like I can actually relax into my life. And people will look and think, God, 3 years, and that's so much, like that's so much time. People get, I mean, like my best friend, she's met someone and getting married within 2 years. But then I think, okay, well, it's taken me 3 years to sort everything out and for me to be calm and be able to be in a position to be like, okay, everything in my life is calm. The only thing that on paper I am missing as such is a partner. It's the easiest thing. I think like the hardship that I've been through since I've been made redundant financially has been so hard, and finding someone is not going to be anywhere near as hard as that. So I have been saying 2026 is probably the year where I open my heart up a little bit and start wondering what, how life looks like with me meeting somebody. I haven't put any pressure on it because I wanted to get everything else in my life sorted. And that's pretty much like the end of 2025. I'm going to look back and be like, yes, this year I haven't got the holiday photos. I haven't got all the traveling photos, being able to say that we've done something every single weekend, the festivals and stuff like that. I'll be able to look back on 2025 and think, holy shit, that is the year that I really, really knuckled down and I built a life that is financially stable for myself. And it's taken a lot for me to get here, and I hope that like me talking about it is going to make you realize, listening and thinking, take the pressure off finding somebody. Am I in a financial position to be happy with my life? Can I just take 6 months to get into a position where I can find a new place to live, or I can find a new job, and are my finances where they want to be? Is bringing somebody into my life going to create a distraction and away from the stuff that I should be focusing on? These are all the questions that I've been asking myself for quite a long time. I could have very easily last year got into a relationship, maybe because of where my head was and my heart. And do I think I'm ready for a relationship? Mentally, yes, I do. I think I could very easily get into a relationship, but I had to look around myself and I had to be honest with myself. And did my life match up to that? No. What did I need to work on? And we're going into September and I'm exactly where I need to be on my plan. And I talked about my plan. I split my year into quarters, and these last 2 quarters of the year are going to be my biggest. And I'm very, very excited. Anyway, I've rambled on for 20 minutes. Hopefully you found some comfort in what I've said. I've not rambled on to things that you don't want to listen to for 20 minutes. This week, I am talking about something that, it's not that I don't want to talk about it. I just have to be very careful about what I talk about. And I like to talk about stuff that I can back up. If anybody was to ever come for me and say, you said this on a podcast episode, and I can say, here's the evidence. I wanted to talk about when your boundaries are disrespected towards the end of a relationship, or if they're being disrespected. Now, I very rarely talk from a position of empowering people to leave relationships or empowering people to find the courage to speak up about their boundaries being disrespected. And I'm going to come at this episode from the point of view of the fact that the last 6 months of my relationship, there was a lot of stuff that was happening that I should have and would now stand up and say, I'm going or you're going, like you need to leave, because a lot of my boundaries were disrespected and I swept it under the rug because I was so worried about being single. I was petrified about being single and I let so much slide. Now, I'm not going to tell loads of stories in this episode because I don't want to tell loads of stories that happened because, like I said, I like to keep things private, contrary to people's opinions. I don't talk about a lot of things. However, I have pinpointed a few stories that I think are quite common in relationships, potentially spiraling down to a breakup. And so I've pinpointed a few stories that I'm going to be able to tell, but I want this episode to remind you that you don't have to stay in a relationship where you're being disrespected, and you don't. And further on that, and this is what I do a lot, to look back and know that no, you didn't stand up for yourself. You know, you can go to war with yourself. Why didn't you say, I'm not having that? Why didn't you say, well, no, you can leave, or I want you to leave because I feel disrespected? Not to go to war with yourself, but to actually learn from those instances. I'm not going to call them red flags because I think that just ties everything under one blanket. I'm going to refer to them as you being disrespected, because that's what it is when someone lies, when someone does something that you ask them not to do. that is them disrespecting you. And that is the bottom line. And yes, you could say that they are red flags, but I just don't think that term holds any power at all. But being disrespected, that holds so much more power. So this episode, I hope, is going to be in this episode, I hope I'm going to take you on a journey of courage. So today I'm going to take you on what I can hope will be a journey of like courage. I hope that this is going to be able to talk to and speak to two sets of people, whether you're in a relationship that you're thinking, oh my God, I need to leave. Like, why can I not have the courage to leave? And the people in like my position that were left, but how not to go toward yourself thinking I should have left, and how I kind of like sort of structure that thought process. Because like I always say, my breakup was very like out the blue, from a point of view that I always thought that every single time something happened and we had the conversation and we made up, that was put to bed. But what I didn't realize was it kept happening. And when I was in the relationship, I didn't see that as being a problem. I just thought, oh, we're going through a rough patch. We'll always make it through. We've always made it through the rough patches. And it wasn't. It was like a constant disrespect. And so when I say that my breakup was out of the blue, yes, it was. But now looking on the outside, and if I to cast my mind back to the end of 2021, I would be shaking myself and saying, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you allowing these things to happen? Never did I ever think that he would leave me. I should have probably not left, but I should have probably made sure that those things that kept happening didn't continue, and they did, to the point where he then ended up leaving, and I was there, and I ended up thinking, what the hell did I do wrong? Like, why is this on me? And it should have never have been like that. So if you have related to anything that I've said, please stick around. Hopefully this episode is going to bring you a little bit of peace in the chaos of what you're going through right now. So without further ado, guys, let's get into it.
So I'm going to start off by talking about boundaries. I talk about this a lot. I talk about boundaries post-breakup, but I don't really talk about boundaries being stepped on pre-breakup. Boundaries aren't there to punish your partner. They're not there because you're controlling. They're not there because you want to be difficult. Boundaries are you saying, like, this is what hurts my feelings. That could be anything, like personal to you. And I don't like it when you do X, Y, and Z. So please don't do that. So when someone does that, then it almost feels like that boundary that is like protecting your heart has been stepped on, which means your feelings are being hurt. And I think a lot of the time when you're in a relationship, because you do so much together and you're a team, you automatically think that you should have the same boundaries. And that isn't the case. You can have completely separate boundaries. I was such a big thing on lying. Like, I just don't understand why people lie. And for me, I was lied to and then told, I didn't tell you this because I knew you would say no, or I didn't tell you because I knew it hurt your feelings. And so you're automatically in a position where you're like, oh, but he didn't tell me because he didn't hurt my feelings. And so does he care? So he's caring about me. But also that boundary's been stepped on. And there was an instance where I was lied to about his location. And then when I found out, because I went looking for the evidence, because I just knew, gut feeling deep down, never, ever, ever ignore your gut. I knew that he wasn't where he said he was. And so I found out, and I found pictures, and I have screenshots. And I knew that he was not where he said he was. And when I confronted him, it was like, I wanted to go and I knew you would say no because of the people that were there and all the rest of it. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, so you crossed my boundary and you stepped on my boundary. You knew it was going to hurt my feelings, so you lied. And now you're saying you did it because you cared. It doesn't make sense. Like, what I should have turned around and said was, you lied. You stepped on a boundary, you've done something that I've told you not to do. I'm not having it. And I didn't. I was like, I know the reasons why you didn't tell me, and I don't want to stop you from having fun. And all of a sudden, I was then making myself the issue. And realistically, when you go into a relationship, honesty and like trust and loyalty, they're like unspoken contractual agreements. It's just what relationships are built on. And we had so much trust and we were so honest with each other. And then all of a sudden we weren't. And that's where I started to see a lot of my boundaries being like just disregarded. And I remember saying to him, like, I feel really disrespected. And because that is like such a heavy term, going somewhere and not telling me where he's going to him didn't seem like a big deal, because I was saying, you've disrespected a boundary. No, I haven't. You haven't disrespected you. Well, you have. And I think this is where people get stuck in relationships. And I'll talk about this in a minute. It's scarier thinking about being on your own than it is being in a relationship with someone that has, they just lied about where they were. No, it's a huge disrespect. It's a huge way of like them saying, I don't respect you. I don't respect you. You're going to tell me not to do one thing. I'm going to do it anyway because that's how I want to live my life. It's unfair. And the worst thing was, I was allowing it. And so if you're in this position too, you're probably now thinking, Lou, I'm allowing it. You're allowing it. That is the saddest thing, not the worst thing. That is the saddest thing. That I was sat there and I would come away from these arguments and I would think, am I the problem? Like, am I literally the problem? Are these boundaries too high? Am I saying like, don't go there and spend time with those people? Is that wrong of me? No, it made me feel a certain way and it was still being done on multiple occasions. It's wrong. It's disrespect. And I was allowing it. And I was so worried about being alone. I was literally betraying myself by staying. And if that is you right now, and maybe, you know, a boundary has been crossed and you're hoping and praying that they will change, I'm going to tell you something from experience. And like I said at the start, this is me now being able to look out from an outsider's perspective on my relationship, and not the whole of my relationship, again, probably like the last 6 months of my relationship. I am looking now and looking at the stuff that I just rolled over and basically played dead and didn't really bring any attention to. I'm saying this from a point of view from somebody who allowed things to happen. It does not change. They do not change. It actually happens again, and it will happen again. And it happened on so many occasions with me. Things happened that I think, no wonder they did that again, because there was no consequence of them stepping all over this boundary. Every single time I kind of went, oh, sorry for saying you can't do something, sorry for saying that hurts my feelings, but it has hurt my feelings, but you know, we can get through this. Every single time there was no consequence. There was absolutely no consequence. Now, if somebody did that to me, I would obviously be in a different position because I have my own house. But if I was in that same position, lived together with somebody, I would tell them to pack their bags and I would tell them to leave. Not leave me. I would tell them to go and think about what they actually want, think about why they're acting the way they're acting. I would not put that on me. I would put it all on them, because they are the problem and not me. And not you. The way that you have boundaries, the way you're saying, you know, my boundaries are going to be probably very different going into a new relationship as they were in my old relationship. I didn't really have that many boundaries. I know that I'm going to make it very, very clear to my next partner what I will stand for and what I will not stand for. And the minute that those boundaries get stepped on even a little bit, there will be consequences. Because when you pretend like it doesn't hurt your feelings, you hurt your feelings more. When you try and be, which was the same as me, I tried to be this chilled out chick. I tried to be this girl that was like, oh, you know what? We live our own separate lives. You know, he does this, he does what he wants to do, blah, 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 blah. And I constantly hurt my own feelings by doing it because I didn't have any boundaries in that relationship. And when I did, they got trampled on anyway. They were irrelevant. And every single time, like I said, every time that I said that hurt my feelings, it was kind of like, oh, well, I didn't do that because I just knew that the act was going to hurt your feelings, not the fact that they lied. And that hurts more. And even worse on that, you're almost teaching yourself that you don't matter as much as you think you do. And I've spoken about how I felt like I was kind of like third best down the chain of priorities in my ex's life. It's even worse when you start making yourself think that you're the burden and you're the problem. And let me tell you something, you are not the problem. You deserve to be respected. That is literally the bare minimum in a relationship, is respect. You deserve that wholeheartedly. And love without respect is not love at all. And so if you are feeling like this, take a deep breath. Tell yourself that you deserve better, because you do. You absolutely deserve better. When I think back to the Lou in 2021, I want to scream at her, like, you deserve so much better. Like, what are you doing? You deserve so much better. And there was so much stuff that happened. Like, we went on holiday together, and even on holiday, like when I look back and him wanting to spend time by himself on holiday, it was odd. Like, the behaviors were strange, and I deserved so much better. I didn't deserve to be left on holiday. And at the time, like, I was like, oh, he's just doing his own thing. We do our own thing together. And now when I look back, I'm like, that is not normal. That's not how we holidayed ever before. We'd be glued at the hip, and that just wasn't a thing. And I've had confirmation from him when he said, I checked out 6 months ago. I can now see that he checked out 6 months before he left, like, massively. And like I said, things were happening. We were going on holiday, we're doing the coupley things. The acts that we were doing were that we were fine. And actually, if I dissected it further, we were not fine. And I should have put my foot down a lot sooner than I did. The first step of like being able to move forward with this is naming the violation, naming that boundary cross, naming the disrespect, and not minimalizing it. Because the minute you minimalize it and you just brush it off as like, oh, okay, so that was just a mistake, you're minimalizing yourself. You're just brushing yourself under the carpet. You're not standing there in front of someone and saying, this is not how you should be acting in a relationship. And not one part of me thinks, was he acting like that so I left? Like, did he hurt me so I was going to leave? Because I wholeheartedly, 1000% know that he knew how much I loved him, and he knew I would never leave. He knew that. I don't think he played on it. I just think it was there. He knew I loved the bones of him. And that's why I think in the last 6 months of my relationship, I was continually disrespected because I allowed it. And so if you're listening to this now and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm allowing so much, find your courage. This is where you find your courage. And you start off by saying to yourself, you deserve or deserved better. So much better. So you're probably thinking now, like, Lou, this is all well and good. How do I leave? How do I start the process of like trying to leave? And there are loads of things that I could say on this. Number one, if you are in an abusive relationship or a relationship that you are being controlled in, then please seek help. And I know that I speak to a lot of people and have to say to a lot of women and a lot of guys, I'm so sorry that you're going through this, but I cannot help you. There are some instances that this will not relate to your situation and that you do need further help. There is so many people out there that would be able to help you if you are in that situation. So I just wanted to say that first, because I don't want you to think that I've just sat here and naively made this episode without taking that into consideration, which I always say if I touch on subjects like this. If you are struggling, and there are helplines out there, obviously I know that there are in the UK, I'm unsure about other countries. But I do have to be careful of what I say on these podcast episodes, and I do want to make sure that I am covering all bases with people's situations, again with children. But I hope that this gives you a little bit more courage to know that you do actually deserve better, and your children probably deserve better as well. But again, I can't relate to those situations because I don't have children. But courage often doesn't look like you standing up for yourself. Courage looks like you being terrified. It looks like shaky hands. It looks like you've not slept for weeks. it looks like you've literally cried for 3 months solid. That is courage. And strength is choosing yourself in these moments. And in these moments of you feeling like, oh my God, I physically cannot do this. That is strength. And that is you finding the strength and the courage that is deep down within you that you know is there. It might not be surface level, but you know it's there. And for me, I obviously didn't have the instance of me leaving, but I found the courage to stand up for myself in the situations that I went through with my breakup and the stuff that my ex was doing. And I used to journal so much so I didn't gaslight myself into thinking that it wasn't that bad. And I remember doing the exercise of, with my therapist, of writing down what I wanted in a partner and then comparing it to my ex. And yes, there were qualities that he had, but because I saw a different side to him, there are a lot of qualities where I thought, I don't want that in the future partner. I want that in the future of like the father of my children, let alone a partner for me. But like, writing things down and journaling, that's why I am a huge advocate of journaling. Seeing it in front of you, getting it down on paper is so hugely important. Like I said, one, it stops yourself from gaslighting yourself, like, did that really happen, or am I making that out to be as bad? And I have got paragraphs and paragraphs of messages to my ex telling him what he's doing, and him replying like, I'm so sorry I did all of that. And for me, they are the most comforting messages. Yes, they're distressing to read and it's sad. And sometimes I think, oh my God, like, I can't believe that I even went through some of that. But I don't sit there and think, did that really happen? And obviously my therapist has my notes as well. And being able to journal out every single time you feel disrespected will then enable you to feel like you aren't making things up. If I showed my journal, all these messages to my friends and family, they would be like, what the fuck? And you know that it's bad when you know you're going to get that reaction off of friends and family. So every single time it happens, if I wrote down in the last 6 months of my relationship everything that I went through and everything that happened and like the messages and stuff, and sometimes this is going to sound so insane, but sometimes when I'm like, I'll have a dream about my ex, which is very rare, or like I see them or whatever, I go back to a certain message in September in 2021 and I look through the messages, and it makes me realize that even if we'd worked things out, and even if he'd not left, even if we got back together, at some point in his life he was that person. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But I have the evidence. I sit down and I read them and I think, hold on a second, why on earth am I missing this person? Because they were capable of doing this. And so journaling, making sure you're not gaslighting yourself, making sure, you know, you are digging deep and being really, really, really frank and serious with, who do I want to marry? Who do I actually want to be in a relationship with? Does all of the qualities of that person live in the person that I'm with? Or were they in the person that left? Get real. Be honest with yourself. If you can't be honest with yourself, who are you going to be honest with? Like, you have to be harsh. And I always talk about affirmations. Tell yourself that you are worthy. If you've got somebody that is disrespecting you in your house, you know, you're living with somebody that is continually going against every single boundary that you have, who's going to tell you that you are worthy? Because you are not being made to feel like you are worthy of love. So tell yourself and listen to what you're saying. Listen to every word. I am worthy. I deserve so much more than this. I have the courage. I am strong. Fear will not control me. My heart deserves so much more. My heart deserves protection. Tell yourself all these things. I wake up every single morning and I tell myself certain affirmations with how I'm feeling in that day. Honestly, when people say, oh yeah, you just do affirmations, you just talk to yourself, if you're going to have that attitude against it, they're not going to work because you don't believe them. So believe yourself. Write them down, read them out, tell them yourself all the time. When you walk into your car, I'm worthy, I'm confident, I've got courage, I'm strong. Believe them when you're saying them. There's no point in just saying them. They're not going to work if you're just going to say them. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing something whilst fear still exists.
And fear will grip you, and it will grip onto you, and you will do a lot of things whilst you're single through fear, and it will still be there. But that's when you learn that you have courage and that you have strength. And this is why I'm such a big advocate in journaling and affirmations, because they remind you, little things every day remind you that you have the strength. They remind you that, you know, you are speaking the truth. And that is why when people say like, oh my God, I don't know what the future looks like. Yeah, no, you don't know what the future looks like. You don't know what your future husband's going to look like. You don't know who you're going to meet. You just don't know. But you can kind of shape your life. Like, the future used to really scare me, being single, and like, what does it look like? And yes, you can argue that they bring a lot of happiness into your life, but they also bring a lot of sadness. They've also brought a lot of disrespect. And imagine where you would be if you were able to spread your wings and do what you wanted to do. And I know for a fact that when my parents speak to their friends and they say, how's Lou doing? Has she met anybody yet? And it took a long time for my mum to say she doesn't want to. Not yet. She doesn't want to. And people are like, oh, because that's what I tell my parents. I don't want to meet somebody. This is not the future that I wanted for my single self. I don't want to waste my single years searching for somebody. That is not how I wanted to live my single life. I want to live my single life. I want to be comfortable in being single. I don't want my single days just to be, like on dating apps and like searching for somebody. No, that's not how you live single. You live a single life on your own, doing the things that you want to do without somebody disrespecting you. Because I am so picky about who I allow into my life. The minute someone disrespects me, it's like black mark. No, it's like a credit score. You know, it's not going to be on your file for 6 years. It's probably going to be on your file for 10 years. And that's probably why I've distanced myself from you. I'm very particular who I spend time with. And I'm very honest about that to people. I say a lot, I've been able to make new friends, but people have come into my life whilst I've been single in this era of my life, and I have told them to leave again. And like, new people have come in and I've gone, oh no, like I don't like that or whatever. And you have to remember that the future starts with you respecting yourself. And how are you going to respect yourself? You're going to remember that the fact that you having boundaries is you protecting yourself. And if those boundaries are being trampled on, then there should be consequences. The more you dust it under the rug, the more you just smooth things over, the more you are actually disrespecting yourself. And then doubly, you're being disrespected by somebody else. It's unfair. And it's not how you should be living your life within a relationship. And I've said it twice throughout this episode, but love without respect is not love. That isn't love. If your partner is disrespecting you, that isn't love. That is where you should start taking signs of, should I be putting up with this? And point blank, the answer is simple. The answer is no. You shouldn't be putting up with it. And so I just wanted to finish off with just reminding you that when somebody breaks a boundary of yours, you do not owe them another chance. If the disrespect is so bad, if there's been cheating, lies, continual lies, you do not owe them anything. You do not owe them any of your precious time, any of your precious energy. What you do owe it to is yourself, your heart, your future. Remember, you owe yourself the freedom. You owe yourself the respect. You owe yourself the peace. This is what you owe. You don't owe anyone who disrespects you anything. And people will probably listen to this or hear me talking about subjects like this, like, oh, they only said that they were there and what they were was there and blah, 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 blah. No, I have learned in the last 3 years to unapologetically protect my heart. And sometimes that means saying to people like, I don't care what you think. I don't care about your opinion. Like, I'm protecting my heart. And I always say that, you know, you don't know what someone's been through. Walk a mile in my shoes and then tell me that you wouldn't disagree with that. And you don't have to go into masses of detail. You don't have to tell people your life story. You can literally just say, no, I don't agree with that. Or you've disrespected me. I don't want you in my life. And yes, it's hard to see the longer road ahead. And when you're in the trenches and you're in like the pits of your breakup, it is hard to see a way out.
it is hard to talk to yourself in a positive way and tell yourself that you do not deserve to be treated the way you're being treated. It is really difficult. I found it really hard. And like I said, you might not be able to put any of this into action yet. It might just be the fact that this episode exists, you know, you can come back to it. I know it's really difficult, and I really, really struggled to tell myself that being single isn't as scary as it seems. Being single at the moment in my life is not scary at all. I don't get scared about being single. I don't get really scared about doing things on my own. I thought that flying solo, like on my own, would be scary, and even that isn't scary to me anymore. But staying in a place where you are disrespected in the long run, that is scary. I sometimes reflect on what it would be like to still be in the same relationship that I was in, knowing the stuff that I went through and like knowing the things that I know now. And I think about it and I think that is terrifying, that I would stay with somebody who was capable of the disrespect. And I know that people have pasts. I know that. I'm not naive to the fact that I will meet people who may have done the same. But I also have complete control over what I do with that information, how I react to that information. Would I want to be with somebody who said that they had walked out on their fiance? No, I wouldn't. I have complete control over that. Like I said, there is billions of people in the world. If I meet one person and they have something that I think, actually, no, a boundary of mine is to be with somebody that hasn't got the same sort of patterns or shows the same sort of behaviours of my ex, then fine. That is literally how I am. And people say, oh, you're shutting your dating pool down. Okay. That's a boundary of mine. I don't want to be with somebody who has the ability to walk out on a person that they loved or a person that they promised forever to. I don't want that. And people do want that, evidently, but I don't want that. And those boundaries are fine. Those boundaries are totally okay to have. You are respecting yourself 1000% more than anyone has ever respected you by saying, that is a boundary of mine. I am not going to cross it. And if you have struggled listening to this episode and you want to take anything away and you're like, Lou, I can't put this into motion at the moment, just take away the fact that you are enough. You deserve honesty, you deserve respect, and you deserve to feel safe in a relationship. Take these things away with you. They are so important to remember in instances like this. I hope that episode has helped. I have really enjoyed digging deep in this episode. I know that a lot of the topics that I cover are quite heavy. That was quite a heavy episode. So maybe you've had to listen to it and break partway through. There's been podcast episodes that I've listened to before where I've had to stop them because I'm like, oh my God, this is too intense. So if you need to come back to this episode in 6 months' time, it isn't going anywhere. My podcast isn't going anywhere. You are able to come back to this episode in 6 months' time. If you want to talk to me about anything, I'm available on my Patreon all the time. The link to my Patreon is in my bio. You can follow that, sign up. It's £5 a month. I'm not sure what that equates to in any other currency, but it's £5 a month. You can talk to me. I reply to you in 2 days. If you are struggling, you don't want to sign up to my Patreon, please just drop me a DM. I reply to my DMs about once a week. I also have my no contact course. If you are struggling with no contact, that is also available by following my Stan store. I also have another course available there as well, so you can go and check that out. Everything is available through the links that you will find in every single video, every single episode of this podcast. As always, guys, please look after yourself. Please reach out to me. You are not alone in this breakup, I promise. And so if you're not on my Patreon, I will speak to you guys next week. Look after yourself. Have a glorious weekend. Bye.